Hello everybody, this is JT Productions and I'm back with another preview prediction video. Today we will be doing the LSU Tigers. Let's go. The LSU Tigers last season went 6-7, 3-5 in the SEC and fired the head coach Ed Orgeron. Honestly, I think it was a little early to fire him. He had done well with the recruits that he had gotten in. Even though he had a terrible year in 2020 and not the great of year in 2021, he put up a fight in almost every game. He was one play away, I believe, from beating UCLA week 1, one play away from beating Auburn. Kentucky was a blowout. Ole Miss was a blowout. He was one play away from beating Alabama, who at the time was number 2, one play away from beating Arkansas. And if that all went their way, they would have went 10-2 and probably would have saved Coach O's job. Notable wins that they had accumulated at Mississippi State, against Florida, and then against Texas A&M. Now, there's been a lot of change at LSU this offseason. They hired Brian Kelly to come in. They lost both their offensive and defense coordinator. They lost their starting quarterback from last year, Max Johnson. They lost some defenders in the secondary like Eli Ricks and another guy who went to Arkansas. So it's a lot of turnover, and it's going to be very volatile this season for LSU, in my opinion. Let's see what they're working with, though. They did get some transfers in. Well, the star of their offense will be Kayshon Boutte, who was, before he got injured, was a great piece of that offense last year. They got Dre Jenkins still, Malik Neighbors, Jack Besh. They also got a junior transfer in Kyron Lacey from Louisiana, Lafayette. On the offensive line, you got a transfer in from East Tennessee State and Tremont Shorts. They got another one, a sophomore transfer, Miles Frazier from FIU. Don't know how much that will help, but we'll see. Running back, you have John Emery Jr., redshirt junior transfer Noah Kane, who I believe came from Penn State, so he could help out. You have tight end Jack Mashburn. And then at quarterback, you have a 4-way battle. Miles Brennan, redshirt senior, he's been there before. He was Joe Burrow's backup when he was at LSU. Jaden Daniels, junior transfer from Arizona State. Garrett Nussmeier, redshirt freshman. And Walker Howard, a highly talented freshman quarterback. So that's one thing that I kind of makes me shy away from kind of putting LSU high, just because of the question mark at quarterback and the new head coach, coaching staff, and everything. On the defensive side, you still have Allie Gay. You got Jaquelin Roy, who will be good. Mason Smith, B.J. Ojolari, Mike Jones, and then a transfer in Mekhi Garner, who came over from Louisiana Lafayette. Their front seven is really good. Their defense is going to be great as always this year. They also got another transfer, Makai Wingo, from Missouri. They got some other transfers like Wes Weeks from Virginia, Colby Fields from South Carolina at linebacker. Then in the secondary is the real treat for LSU. Joe Fausha from Arkansas at strong safety. Jarek Bernard Converse, senior transfer from Oklahoma State at corner. Greg Brooks, senior transfer from Arkansas. Seven Banks, graduate transfer from Ohio State. Quad Wilson, a sophomore transfer from McNeese State. That really can help their offense. They also got Major Burns, who was transferred last year. They got Derek Davis in the secondary, Jay Ward. Their defense, if they mesh together well, should be fine. The offense, if they're able to mesh together, it'll be fine. One thing that needs to be talked about is Brian Kelly. How is he going to affect this team? Because Brian Kelly, he has a standard that he set in Notre Dame that he will most likely be bringing to LSU, where Ed Orgeron would usually let players who had maybe been in trouble in the past, kind of let it slide. Even before that with Les Miles, I don't think that Brian Kelly will allow that. Brian Kelly, he ran a tight ship at Notre Dame, and I think he's going to try to do that at LSU. So what that could lead to is players being cut from the team or kicked off the team, players getting in trouble and being punished more than they would have under previous head coaches, and this will just become a volatile situation for LSU. Brian Kelly, when he was at Notre Dame, was only 3-4 against the SEC since 2010. And keep in mind, 2 of those wins were against LSU. The other was against Vanderbilt. The 4 losses against the SEC are Georgia, Alabama, and Alabama. So he was lost to the best of the SEC, but he also beat some good SEC teams. One thing that I'm kind of hesitant about is the running game. Without Tyrone Davis-Price, John Emery Jr. has not impressed. Noah Cain, he was okay to pretty good at Penn State. But who is going to emerge from that running back room to kind of rectify the run game, if they're going to have any? So, the thing I'm trying to get to is this is a highly volatile team. On one hand, it could surprise some teams and get some upsets, or it could just blow up into obscurity. So, with that being said, let's see what I think's going to happen. This is the hardest schedule for me to predict so far. I could go either way on so many of these games. But I'm going to stick with my guns and say what I said a while ago when I predicted this. So, week 1, you're in New Orleans to face Florida State. Last season, Brian Kelly and a better Notre Dame team faced Florida State in, I believe, Tallahassee and almost dropped it. They had to go to overtime. And that same Florida State team, with the loss of Jermaine Johnson, is getting better with Mike Norvell and his recruiting. I think that Florida State stuns LSU in New Orleans week 1, and they dropped to 0-1. I know. It's all you LSU fans that watch this are going to be absolutely cursing me because of all of this that you think's malarkey, but it could happen. Week 2, you're playing Southern. You're going to get the win. This is going to be a kind of game to kind of figure out your kinks, figure out what quarterback is going to kind of play. Next, you play Mississippi State in Baton Rouge. 2 years ago, they beat you in one of the instant classics where KJ Costello played his one good game for Mississippi State. I think with your defense, you're able to get the win here. I think it may be a low-scoring game in the 20s, and I think you beat Mississippi State at home before going back home, before you staying home and playing New Mexico and getting the win. So, to finish the first month of the season, you are 3-1. Not bad. Then, you're on the road at Auburn. Auburn's beaten you 2 years in a row. Auburn is not per se a great team, however, they have pieces. The one piece they don't really have at this point, if they're still playing Finley, is a good to great quarterback. However, I think that Brian Harsin will get a signature win here against LSU. And I think you drop it and start the month of October off with a loss and are 3-2 before hosting Tennessee in Death Valley. So Tennessee, they're a very good offense. The defense is not as good. This, I could go either way on this or the Auburn game. However, I think with a second-year head coach in what's his name? Oh my gosh. I blank on names all the time if you could not tell. But I think that Tennessee gets the win in Baton Rouge, and you drop to 3-3. Then you go on the road to Florida. This is another game that could go either way. I'm giving it to the Gators, and I think that you're 3-4, and then 3-5 after you play Ole Miss at home. Go into your bye week, you're 3-5. You have to win 3 out of the next 4 games to become bowl eligible. In those 4 games, you have Alabama, at Arkansas, UAB, and at Texas A&M. It's going to be a hard task. We'll see if you can do it. Alabama, no. I think that they get a big win. LSU has actually been more competitive in Tuscaloosa than they have in Baton Rouge, if you didn't know that. So, you're 3-6. Then you have to go out to Arkansas. I think you're going to give Arkansas a run for their money at this point in the season. You're going to be wanting to hold on to any hope that you have of making a bowl game in Brian Kelly's first season. But I think in the end, more consistency wins out, and Arkansas gets the win with KJ Jefferson. So now you're 3-7. You host UAB. I think that this could be a trap game for LSU as well. UAB is not a bad team. I do think you get the win, and you're 4-7 before going to College Station to take on the Aggies. And I think you lose. I think Texas A&M beats you after being humiliated last year in Death Valley. And if you're wondering why I'm calling it Death Valley, it's because that's the actual name. It's not Death Valley. It was coined Death Valley a bunch of years ago. I don't know the exact number, but it's not Death Valley. That's a misconception. It's Death Valley. So all of you Clemson fans that are watching this, if you are, you're welcome. So, anyways, I have LSU finishing the season 4-8. This is a team that I could go back and forth on with each game, honestly, but it just comes down to where each game's played, who you're playing. Like, maybe if you had Auburn at home and Florida at home, I would give you those wins, but since they're not, and Tennessee and Ole Miss just have firepower offenses that I just don't think you're going to be able to get over. I think that you don't win a game in the month of October and win one in the month of November and start from scratch in 2023. So anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this. Listen to me ramble on about LSU football. So I hope y'all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know some suggestions down below. We have now finished the SEC. And now we will finish up the rest of the Power 5, hopefully. Maybe be done by mid-July, something like that. And if not, hopefully before week 0. So, hope y'all enjoyed, and Go Dogs.